Kombozi from Mwalimu 1979. It was institutionalized again in Obote II. And who can say today, with Yoweri Museveni and your constitution of 1995, who can say that Uganda does not have an imperial president under the current constitution? All that, my argument is, all that was inspired by Julius Kambarage Nyerere. And you know, he did not only inspire constitutional development in that direction, he also interfered massively in Uganda's internal political processes. Anyone doesn't know this? He did not only overthrow Idi Amin, he installed Professor Lule, and when Lule started acting too independently, he had him removed, all right, in Mwanza. You should read Professor George Kanyehamba's book on the constitutional development of Uganda. He tells the story of how Lule was removed. They were all summoned in Mwanza, and the deal was done. Interfered heavily in Uganda's internal politics. He paved the way for the return of Milton Obote II through the halfway house called Paulo Muwanga and his defense minister, one Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. So whatever you think of Milton Obote, whatever you think of what happened during those 5 painful years, from 1980 to 1985, to July 85, when Obote was once again thrown out by the army, you should never forget that Obote's return the second time was engineered by Mwalimu NYERERE. And therefore, he bears a not small contribution in the torment that Uganda went through during those years. And he was also, as I said, the political father figure of your current president. The one thing that we should not blame Mwalimu for, I think, as I said, he was a great man. One of the things that testified to his greatness was his decision in 1985 to relinquish power voluntarily. Tanzania became the first country in Africa to successfully institute presidential term limits, the first on the continent, and it is thanks to him too. That it has not held in Uganda, it was tried, right? It was tried thanks to his inspiration. It was presidential term limits were instituted here, I argue, thanks to Mwalimu, to his inspiration, to his example. That they have not held. He should not be blamed for the fact that presidential term limits have not survived here. Maybe if we say that he contributed in a way because of the imperial presidency that he inspired here and elsewhere. But his introduction of presidential term limits has held in Tanzania and has been adopted in almost every other constitution you can think of in modern Africa. Even if in few countries there has been a backsliding So we can thank Mwalimu for presidential term limits, the constitutional legacy of Mwalimu. What else? What else? Mwalimu loved university. He loved intellectual debates at university. During his long tenure in office, Mwalimu encouraged academic freedoms at the country's sole university. He loved going to the university to battle it out with students and faculty. He allowed freedom nowhere else. You had no right to speak anywhere else but the university. If you go today to the University of Dar es Salaam today and to our universities beyond Dar es Salaam, that great tradition of academic freedom has been lost. Today, our universities have become jailhouses where academic freedom is imprisoned. Mwalimu let it flourish. And standing here today at NYERERE, his alma mater, I urge you all to protect that one distinguishing factor that characterized Mwalimu and his university: intellectual and academic freedom. Fight to protect your right to speak, right to protect your academic freedoms here in this great university. So let me finish. Let me finish so that we may ask questions. What do we make then of Mwalimu? What do we make then of this great man? One, he was a man of his times. The period of the 1960s was a period of what scholars have described as dirigisme. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. It was a period of state control of the commanding heights of the economy. It was a period of the state as a provider of social services, not just in Africa, but it started in Western Europe, and that is why Mwalimu counted as his close friends all Western social democrats, from Willy Brandt in Germany to Sweden's Olof Palme, and the British labor leaders of the period. So he was a man of his period, a man of his times. Number two, he could have made different choices. It was not a given that we should have taken the direction that Mwalimu took. Sir Seretse Khama of Botswana, who led his country to independence in 1965, did not take that road. And today, people sing praises of Botswana as one of the few success stories. It is partly because Sir Seretse Khama, the first president, did not choose the path that Mwalimu chose. He had choices, and he should be judged for choices that he made. Number three, he was a human being. He was fallible. There have been a huge investment in politics as well as in the church to canonize him, to make him either a political saint. If you are in Tanzania, Mwalimu is untouchable, or a religious saint, as in Saint Julius. There has been a massive investment to make Mwalimu a saint. Whether a secular political saint, or a religious saint, as in those efforts which started here with Ugandan Catholics. But Mwalimu, I believe, they are doing this because Mwalimu is no longer with us. Mwalimu would have been the first to admit that he was first and foremost a political leader. He was a devout Catholic, yes, but he never was a religious leader of any not. He was a political leader, and as such political leader, he could sign death sentences, and he did sign several death sentences. He put people into detention without trial. He conducted war. We always talk of the Uganda War of 1979. Read Museveni's planting the mustard seed, and you will know that there were all kinds of troubles emanating from Mwalimu's Tanzania into Amin's Uganda. In fact, one of our regional police chiefs was killed inside Uganda, and he was not returned to Tanzania until after 1979. What business was the regional police commander doing deep inside Uganda in 1972? Mwalimu had a very activist foreign policy. He sent Tanzania's armed forces to overthrow governments in Seychelles, in Comoro. He had Tanzanian soldiers fighting in liberation wars in Mozambique and elsewhere. He was a very activist. He had a very activist foreign policy, like someone you know very well. Now that's another legacy of him. He was first and foremost a political leader. He did not allow rights. He was not accountable to anyone. He was one of the most honest people you can imagine. He died a poor man. In fact, he died without a pension. Mwalimu got his pension statutorily provided in April of 1986, almost a year after he had relinquished presidential office. So he left office without a pension. He didn't steal. His family are paupers by Tanzania's recent standards. He's a very honest man. And there is a great value to be attached to that. But he created the constitutional and institutional incentives for the massive corruption that the country suffers from today. He created a system of government which was completely unaccountable to anyone. So that is Julius Kambarage Nyerere and his legacies for you. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you. Thank you.
Once again,